The second type of risk we want to talk about is malware. Malware is traditionally what people think of when they think of computer viruses, spyware, anything that can wreak havoc on your hardware and can compromise your data. I would also put ransomware in this category, which is a specific kind of malware that encrypts and locks down your data on your device until you pay a ransom to get it unlocked. The best ways to guard against these kinds of threats are endpoint security and system updates. First up in the malware risk category is endpoint security. Now, as mitigation tools go, when we think of endpoint security, that's normally what people are talking about when they talk about virus scanners, when they talk about malware scanners, any sort of program that you run on your computer that's supposed to defend your computer against bad guys trying to do bad guy stuff to it. These tend to come from providers like Symantec, Norton, Trend Micro, Avira. There's plenty of others, but generally, if you think of a program in terms of antivirus, this is what we're talking about. The concept of antivirus, simply beyond just being a virus scanner, has expanded recently to include device encryption, cloud backups and security, and live active threat detection and management. That's a sort of a symptom of how the internet has evolved over the last couple of years and also of how the threats have evolved. When endpoint security is properly configured, it can detect and neutralize a malware threat on your machine a lot of times before it can do too much damage. And if it has already infected a big chunk of your hard drive or your data or your files, a lot of times that endpoint security application can be very helpful in your recovery effort as well. Now, the best way to avoid getting a virus, to avoid malware threats, is to stay out of places on the internet you shouldn't go and not click on stuff you're not supposed to click on. But because those things happen to everyone, endpoint security is a good solution for managing that risk. Now, physical device security is important as well. Many endpoint security solutions now offer the ability to lock down, remotely manage, or even remotely wipe a device if it has been stolen or compromised. This means literally, like, if your laptop gets stolen, you could use your endpoint security application to remotely protect, defend, or reset and delete all the information on your computer. Now, if your computer is stolen, if your computer gets infected with malware, if your computer gets locked down with ransomware, if you have properly configured, well-maintained physical or cloud backups of your data, your computer, and your files, that really lowers the stakes quite a bit. And the stakes are lowered because it is not critical for you to unlock or recover the data that's specifically on that device, because you can reset it, you can wipe it, and then you can restore your computer, your files, and your information from that backup. And then it doesn't matter that you had to delete everything on your computer, or other than the financial difficulty of losing a device, it doesn't matter that the device was lost because you were able to remotely wipe it, get a new one, upload your information and files, and continue working. Backups are especially important, and everything we just talked about in terms of backups, that's especially true when it comes to ransomware attacks. Ransomware attacks specifically are your drive is encrypted, and unless you insert 1 Bitcoin or something, you can't get to your data and your files. I am of the opinion that you should never pay the ransom in a ransomware attack, because in the vast majority of cases, people that do pay the ransom don't actually end up recovering their data. So if you've got good backups and a good workflow in place for endpoint security and other digital risk mitigation, you can simply just wipe that device, load it onto a new one, and get moving. That doesn't solve the problem of your information having been stolen or compromised, but it at least doesn't prevent you from being able to maintain continuity of work with a restored and backed up device. All right, now this is going to sound silly, but system updates are important. I know that when we think about digital risk, when we think about malware, when we think about hacking and compromised and all that other stuff, we don't normally think about security updates being an important part of an ecosystem of defending against those kinds of risks. But they absolutely are. It is a habit that people get in of not letting their computer run an update because it takes an extra 5 or 10 minutes when you first get to work. It's going to be inconvenient. You don't let your phone run its updates. Basically, you've got a lot of devices that are clamoring for, that are begging for an update. My advice to you is to always let your devices go get, download, and install an update when it asks. My reasoning for that is this. Almost every update that gets pushed to an operating system, that gets pushed to a device, is about security. Sometimes you get new functionality, like, hey, I got night mode now. But almost all the rest of the times, it's about security. A security breach, a security vulnerability has been identified, and the company has released now a patch to plug up that hole and prevent people from using it to access devices that they're not supposed to engage in generally in bad guy stuff. So when your device asks for an update, it is almost always about security, and it is almost always in your best interest to go ahead and let it download, install, and apply that update.